How's it going, everybody? Session here. Welcome to Final Fantasy XIV, and essentially what is a controller example hotbar for Dark Knight. Now, full disclosure, this is going to look so weird, and I feel like I think when Endwalker came out, and I had gotten all my tanks to level 90, I had the most trouble initially trying to figure out button placement of abilities for Dark Knight the most out of every class in the entire game. Maybe second to Dragoon, but that's kind of like I don't know. I gotta kind of reminisce and go through that. But I had an extremely difficult time with Dark Knight in terms of the hotbar. And I think it kind of adds weight into some things because of how the class functions, but also because of just the significant difference of abilities that it has, since there's so many like OGCDs that the class has in general, compared to every other tank in the game. So like, fair warning, like this is gonna seem very overbearing, so I do apologize if you look at this and you're like, oh my gosh, right? But I mean, I can't even really dive through a lot of what old Dark Knight used to look like. Because at least we had Shadowbringer. That was the newest ability that came into place for Dark Knight at level 90. But I used to have Edge of Shadow. I even used to have Flood of Shadow right here. Like before we got Ablation and Shadowbringer, I used to have these two abilities here, and that was because with Delirium, like Delirium was always in the same spot. Post Heaven's Word. Is that what it is? I think so. Because Delirium used to be like a different ability in entirety. It used to be actually like a GCD, like attack. Now they turned it into... It's a whole different button. Either way, though. With Shadowbringers, at least, Delirium... Or maybe it was... I don't know. It's fine. So with Delirium, essentially, it activates the ability to use 3 Blood Spillers, which was always cool to note. And so during the burst phasing of me playing as a Dark Knight, I had to essentially weave 2 ability OGCDs in between a Blood Spiller. So if I activated my Delirium and then did my Blood Spiller, I had to add 2 GCDs or OGCDs in between. So that was when I would use Edge and Carve and then Edge and then Plunge and that kind of thing. So that was what I used to do. And even adding the Shadow and Earth was not too complicated, because when you Blood Weapon and you do it, then I would just go through it. And then I think with Shadowbringers, these were placed here, but beforehand we had a whole bunch of different abilities, so it didn't really require us to have Shadow and Salted Earth here. Actually, Salted Earth back in the day used to be like a bubble that you place down somewhere. I didn't used to just put it in front of me and that was it, right? It used to be a button you could actually place it down. And I don't remember if they ever introduced that there's a button that you can configure where if you double tap the button, then you can just place down a bubble. It works really well for healers, since a lot of them have those kinds of moves. But I don't think that button was released with Shadowbringer. So I don't know if I never used it, but it's the long story short. If I had to put down a bubble with the Salted Earth, I would press right trigger up to activate it, and then I'd press cross to place it down. So I tried to do this as fast as possible, just to be able to place my Salted Earth down. But with Shadowbringers, at least, it was really easy to just kind of, I press Soul Eater, and then I press these two right next to each other, and that was literally it. It was really easy. But yeah, that was what it was like. Sorry, back in the day, So then, of course, with the release of Endwalker rather, some of the changes that they got implemented was that they made Carve and Abyssal the same move, but one's a single target and the other one's AoE. And I know that to be the case because I used to have Abyssal down here, and I had Quietus up where my Stalwart, not even Stalwart Soul, because we didn't even have that move until Endwalker. So I used to have Quietus up here, and I had Stalwart Soul. Actually, no, I think it was more so something like that. I think that's what it looked like. But then the problem that kind of came into place was that I had Dark Mind and I had to put it somewhere, so I just put it somewhere that just wouldn't get in the way, but I can still remember that's there. And the hardest part was figuring out where to put Abyssal Drain. But thankfully, because they were the same move in a manner of speaking, I had to put it somewhere, like I said. So I would have theoretically put it like this, since like it's an attack that does an AoE, so it should work in theory like this. But I also didn't like that Dark Mind not being like a healing ability was there, since like, you know, my Clemency and my Aurora are there. Like I couldn't put Dark Mind there, so for me it just felt good to put it right there, since like in my mind it recovers HP. Like I said, it was the most confusing thing for me to play Dark Knight and put buttons in places, because I was all over the place with it. But then of course, like once I unlocked Shadowbringer, I had to figure out something. And when I got Dark Knight 2 level 90, that's where Shadowbringer was. Like it was literally right there. Now the problem with that was it was a 2-minute, essentially. It was a 2-minute button basically, because you only use it during your burst phasing, and it's 60 seconds per cast. So I didn't really enjoy the idea of having it next to 1-2-3 combo. Not only in case if I like fat fingered it, but just because it's a button that's so necessary for the burst window. So if I messed it up, then I would feel so terrible. So I ended up switching these two, which I actually liked a lot, because then it was really easy to just throw this in whenever I needed to, just to either reset my timer or get like a free hit with the Blackest Night. And then once I realized I had Shadowbringer here with Flood of Shadow, obviously Flood of Shadow is a AoE variation of Edge, and Ablation was up here as well. I didn't move this ability at all once I unlocked it at 82. I don't think I even honestly used the ability until I actually moved it from where Flood of Shadow was before. So once I actually changed it like this, I was like, oh, now all my AoE attacks of Unleash, Stalwart, and Flutter here, I can use Dark Mind, you know, just kind of whatever. It's not really a big deal to me. But then I have Ablation here, which reminded me of Corundum and Nascent Flash, kind of. So there's just a mitigation button that's just there as Dark Knight. So I just kind of stuck with it. And then Shadowbringer was up here. So then I realized, okay, let me try the opener, right? So I would activate Blood Weapon, you know, you start doing your stuff. And then, obviously, once I start my Delirium, then I realized that I had to use Shadowbringer, which, again, was a lot more comfortable to be able to spend time sitting just on the left side of that hotbar when I had to press certain buttons. And of course, because Shadowbringer doesn't come back up for 2 minutes, that's a button I never worry about every, you know, other 2 minutes, right? So it's actually really comfortable to just kind of look at that button and be like, okay, cool, it's not necessary for 2 minutes, I get to just let it do its thing. But if I moved Shadowbringers anywhere else on my hotbar, I feel like I would have a lot of complexity finding a comfortable place to use that button. So for me, because Bloodspiller's here and you spend a lot of time, like if I wanted to get technical, it would be nice to put Edge here, because then I would just do like literally these two along with Edge. I would just sit here and just do this like for, you know, 60 seconds at a time. But I ended up not doing that because Carbon Spit has always been in the same spot that it was always in. Plus, it's a 60-second OGCD, which, not that it's an OGCD similar to Sonic Break and Goring Blade, but because it was 60 seconds, it just was like a button that was just there, and I understood that. Because I don't think there's a GCD that 60 seconds that Dark Knight has. No. And that's why I couldn't put anything else there. So it just made sense to me to put Carbon Spit there. So the whole purpose of being able to play this class is that you spend most of the time using Blood Weapon and Delirium every minute so that you can activate Bloodspiller and also increase your bar. And usually during that time period as well, you would throw a Carve and a Plunge and a couple of Edges just so that you can kind of keep the ball rolling for that class. But then when it was go time with with Dark Knight, then you throw out the Shadow, then you throw out Salted if it's there, and then you just use all the stuff over here pretty much. And the only real exception was the Edge of Shadow, since it was on the other side of the hotbar. But it's still really comfortable, even if it is on the other side. So I actually really enjoyed being able to kind of sit here and then I'll do Blood Spiller and then I'll, like that, and then because like once you get the meter going for the edge and the MP, then you don't really worry too much about over capping your MP. So like I feel like once you use it once or even twice, then you're pretty much good because you don't recover enough MP through blow weapon, I feel like, to start ripping out of nowhere. But you also gotta be careful because of course the MP recovery does kind of sneak up on you more often than you realize it, especially when you do like a siphon under a blood weapon. It does go back up really fast. The only real caveat though is like if I'm down here pressing my buttons and I have to bounce back up here for mitigation, that is probably one of the things that took a lot of time to get used to, because with pre-work Paladin, I had to spend most of my time on both sides. So if I was here, it was really easy just to come up and then use a button to mitigate and then come back. If I was playing Gunbreaker, I was already up here, so mitigating with that was really easy. With Warrior, you'll see it, but it was kind of similar to how it was with Dark Knight. Like I spent most of my time on this side, so to come up here took some comfort. But with Dark Knight, at least, it made more sense for me once I started to actually put it into rotation and get the ball rolling. But like I said, it was still really complicated to have my buttons just be, because the hotbar looks like it's all over the place, but I tried to have it concentrated under Delirium so that I can Blood Spiller and press all the buttons that are necessary for that time. I feel like, you know, one thing that you could do that might be a good idea is to take Blood Weapon and put it here, since Blood Weapon and Delirium kind of go hand in hand together. Even if you take out the Invuln too, you can take that out and put like Edge or something, because that way you just spend the whole time on this side. But I didn't like my Living Dead being next to my 1, 2, 3, so that's why I kind of left it as it is now. So yeah, like I said, like Dark Knight was really, really complicated for me. But as you obviously see from my previous tanks, you know, this top hotbar is the exact same, except for that one left trigger down key that's always in a different spot, or a different ability sits there is what it was boiled down to. Up here, everything is mostly the same. The only real difference is that this is probably the first tank that you'll realize that I have my AoEs up here, because up here for Gunbreaker I have my Gnashing combo, and then up here for Paladin I have more Mitt. This is the first, I think honestly, and the only tank that I have to have my AoEs up here. I've considered the idea of using or putting AoEs down here like I do with my Gunbreaker and Paladin, but I don't like that. I actually prefer my Shadow and weapon and stuff to be down here. It just felt more comforting to me, so I just kind of didn't want to change too much without overloading myself, and that just ended up being the case scenario for Dark Knight. The problem though is I don't have a clue. See, my concern is that when the next expansion comes out and we get 7.0 and there's more abilities, I have no idea what they're gonna do to, like, I can't fit anything anywhere anymore with Dark Knight. I think if I really had to think about it, it's not really like a hope, it's more like a wonder. I kind of hope that they somehow combine Ablation with the Blackest Night, sort of, because I feel like it was an ability that we got that I was surprised that it wasn't together with TBN, basically. But TBN is such a good ability still, like it works great as it does, so I feel like the way how TBN works, if you did combine it with another mitigation ability like it, then the affectation for it probably wouldn't work out in a way. Because, you know, you have to break the shield of Blackest Night to get a free edge, and if you had a mitigation on top of that, then I feel like if it doesn't break, then it kind of breaks the class in terms of that mitigation tool. So I'm okay with it as it is. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'd like to have Ablation combined with something that's like a mitigation tool. It'd be cool to have it with like Dark Mind or something, right? I mean, I'm not really picky. Whatever change that they add, I'm gonna be happy for it, and then I'll look forward to it. It's gonna be great. But because I feel like my Dark Knight feels cluttered, I trigger bounce around a lot with Dark Knight because of the fact that I have everything kind of sort of everywhere. It's comfortable and I can play the class well, But like I said, when I first was working on the hotbar for this class, I had a really hard time figuring out where all the things were. So I don't know. I feel like if I had to like take a guess, I think if we get to level 100, we're probably going to get an upgrade to Bloodspiller, since that move has been around, since the dawn of time, basically. But also maybe an upgrade towards like the combo here. Like I feel like Soul Eater could use like an upgrade in terms of that affectation, since it does have the unique ability of recovering HP, similar to like Storm's Path for Warrior. It'd be cool if it, like, I don't know, did you get an upgrade and then do another thing. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know what though, but it'd be cool. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do apologize in advance if you find this hotbar for Dark Knight to be very confusing. Hopefully it might add some sense of comfort to where buttons can be pressed, because like I said, I have it kind of worked towards like the Delirium, so I can just be able to press all my 60-second and 120 buttons here, because since you just tap Shadow and Salted and then tap Earth again to be able to do Darkness, but still you only press that button once or twice. Like you kind of will press these buttons like on repeat just to be able to use the abilities, and of course Edge being in the spot that it was just because, again, it'll be used whilst doing 1, 2, 3 in some case scenarios, like after TBN and that kind of thing. So like I said, hopefully this makes a little bit of sense for you and you can use it as an example to understand. Maybe this is an example of like how to not how to not set up a Dark Knight hotbar. But like I said, for me it's very comfortable. I like it after just the wide trial and error of wiring the hotbar together and making it work the way that it possibly can work. I like this job a lot, and this is because of this hotbar setup. I think it allowed me to really enjoy playing Dark Knight this tier as well, along with Gunbreaker, because those are the two tanks I played a lot during Abyssos. So yeah, hopefully it helps. Again, sorry in advance, but hopefully it helps. Happy day.